As your new wife, I am allowing your mother to live in my old apartment, announced my daughter-in-law at the wedding reception. I smiled. I appreciate it, but I am very happy living on my property. My son interrupted me immediately. Mom, I decided not to tell you before, but my in-laws and my sister-in-law are going to move in there. I looked around the room. Actually, they were nowhere to be seen. Then I said very loudly, that sentence hung in the air like glass about to shatter. All the guests turned their heads toward our table. The band stopped playing. The waiters stopped in their tracks, and my son Stephen, my only son, looked at me with a mixture of shame and defiance that I had never seen in his eyes before. My name is Linda. I am 67 years old, and that night I was wearing my burgundy suit that I kept for special occasions. I had ironed every pleat with care. I tied my hair back in an elegant bun. I even put on the pearl earrings that my late husband Arthur gave me for our 20th anniversary. I wanted to look dignified for my son's wedding. I wanted him to be proud of me. How wrong I was. Vanessa the bride was still standing by the head table with her glass of champagne raised high and that smile that I now recognize as pure calculation. She was wearing an ivory dress with beadwork that must have cost more than I earned in 6 months. Her family had organized everything. The event hall downtown, the Flowers brought in from out of state the banquet for 200 guests. And now I understood why. Because when you have total control of the stage, you can write any script. Linda said Vanessa with that sweet voice she used when she wanted to seem generous. I know that at your age it is difficult to maintain such a big house. That is why Stephen and I thought you would be more comfortable in something smaller, more manageable. At my age, as if my 67 years turned me into a decrepit old woman, incapable of opening a door. And since my parents and my sister Monica are going through a difficult time, she continued, we thought it would be perfect for them to help you with the expenses of your house while you settle into Stephen's apartment. It is a solution that benefits everyone, do you not think? The table where my neighbors, Mrs. Higgins and Mr. Higgins, were seated fell into an awkward silence. I saw them exchanging glances. Some guests were already murmuring. Others pretended to check their phones. Stephen did not even look at me. He had his eyes glued to his plate like when he was a child and knew he had done something wrong. I took a deep breath. It smelled of orange blossoms and expensive perfume. It smelled of betrayal wrapped in gift paper. Vanessa. I finally said with a calmness that surprised even me, I appreciate your generosity, but there is something you should know. I stood up. All eyes were on me. That house that you so kindly want me to leave is not just mine. It is the result of 15 years of working 12 hours a day after becoming a widow. It is my husband's inheritance sold brick by brick to pay for my son's college tuition. It is every dollar I did not spend on myself to give Stephen a future. Vanessa blinked. Her smile trembled slightly. And most importantly, I continued feeling my voice getting firmer. The thing is, your parents and your sister, the ones who are supposedly going to move in to help me, where are they? Because I have been at this wedding for 3 hours and I have not seen any of them. The silence was now absolute. Stephen stood up abruptly. His chair screeched against the wooden floor. Mom, please do not cause a scene, he whispered urgently. A scene I repeated. Son, you two just publicly announced that you are going to strip me of my home and I am the one causing a scene. But the worst had not happened yet. If this story has already given you goosebumps, subscribe so you do not miss how it ends, because you will never see what is coming next. That night, I did not sleep. I sat in the living room of my house, the same house they now wanted to snatch from me, looking at the photographs hanging on the walls. Arthur and I on our wedding day. Stephen at just 3 years old covered in flour in the kitchen. Our business, Arthur's Hardware, with its freshly painted green sign. 15 years had passed since Arthur died. 15 years since that early morning when a heart attack took him, while he slept beside me. He was only 52 years old. Stephen had just turned 18. I remember the smell of disinfectant in the hospital, the sound of my own sobs, the cold hand of my husband in mine. And I also remember the terrified look on Stephen's face when I told him his dad would not be coming home. I had to be strong. I had no choice. The hardware store had been Arthur's dream. He opened it with his own hands, brick by brick, shelf by shelf. In the good times, we had 3 employees. We sold everything: cement rods, tools, paint. The contractors in the neighborhood knew us by name. Arthur whistled while serving customers. I kept the accounts in a hardcover notebook. After his death, I tried to keep it running. For 6 months, I got up at 5 in the morning to open the store. I carried bags of cement that hurt my back. I learned about wire gauges and types of nails. But it was not the same. Suppliers started raising prices. The competition from the big chains was drowning us little by little. One afternoon, while closing the metal shutter, I realized I was losing money every month. And Stephen had just received his acceptance letter to the State University to study civil engineering. Tuition was $25,000 a semester, 4 years, 8 semesters, $200,000 just in tuition, not counting books, materials, transportation. That night was no different from this one. I did not sleep either. I ran the numbers over and over again in that same hardcover notebook where Arthur recorded sales. The next day, I hired an appraiser. An older man with thick glasses checked every corner of the hardware store. The inventory, the location, the lease, the clientele. $150,000, he said finally. "It is a noble business, Mrs. Miller. I am sorry you have to sell it." And I sold it. I signed the papers with a trembling hand. I watched as they dismantled the green sign. I packed the memories in cardboard boxes. With that money, I did 3 things. I paid for Stephen's full 4 years of college in advance. I bought the house where I live now, a property in the suburbs that cost $400,000. And with what was left, I bought a 2-bedroom condo downtown for $150,000, which I put in Stephen's name. "It is your inheritance, my son," I told him when he turned 21. "For when you get married, so you have a place to start." He hugged me. He told me I was the best mother in the world. He promised he would never let me down. But promises, I discovered later, weigh less than air when there is a beautiful woman whispering in your ear. I was left with just $20,000 in savings. I looked for work as a freelance bookkeeper. I had studied accounting before getting married, although I never practiced formally. I started keeping the books for small businesses in the neighborhood, a dry cleaner to stationery stores, a coffee shop. I earned enough for my expenses without touching my savings. I never asked Stephen for anything. Not a dollar, not a favor. I wanted him to fly free to build his life without the weight of guilt or obligation. But now, sitting in my living room at 3 in the morning with my party outfit still on and my makeup smeared by tears, I wondered if I had not made the biggest mistake of my life. Because by giving him everything without asking for anything in return, maybe I taught him that my love had no price. And what has no price, anyone can trample on. The first time Stephen told me about Vanessa was a Sunday. He came to eat with that nervous smile he had when he wanted to tell me something important. He brought flowers, something he had not done since he was a teenager, Mom. I met someone, he said, while I served the pot roast he liked so much. That was 2 years ago. Stephen was 33, working at a major construction firm and earning well. He had had girlfriends before, but none had made him like this, with bright eyes, restless hands, that energy of someone who has just discovered something wonderful. Her name is Vanessa. She is a business administrator. I met her at a conference on urban development. 3 weeks later, he introduced her to me. I remember she arrived in high heels that clicked against the floor of my house. She wore sunglasses even though we were indoors. Her purse cost more than my refrigerator. She greeted me with 2 air kisses, the kind that do not really touch your cheek. "Mrs. Linda?" "What a house so cozy," she said, looking around with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Cozy, that word people use when they do not want to say small or modest. During the meal, she spoke mainly about herself, about her work in the family business, about her trips to Miami and Vegas, about her dad, who had been an important businessman. All in the past tense, I noticed, but I did not give it importance then. "Stephen told me you were widowed very young," she said suddenly, looking at me with something that looked like pity. "It must have been very hard to raise a son alone." "It was," I replied, "but it was worth every sacrifice." Of course, although now you can rest right, Stephen is a grown man now. It sounded reasonable, even kind, but there was something in her tone that made me uncomfortable, as if she were measuring, calculating, planning. The visits became more frequent, and with each one, Vanessa dropped little comments like poisoned seeds planted with care. "This house is huge for one person. Do you not feel lonely sometimes? I have seen beautiful condos for people your age, Linda modern, with elevators without so many stairs to take care of. Have you not thought about selling? With what this property is worth, you could live peacefully the rest of your life without worries." And the worst part, she always said it in front of Stephen, always with that sweet, worried voice, as if she really cared about my well-being. At first, my son interrupted her. "Vanessa, my mom is fine where she is." But little by little, he started staying silent, then nodding, then repeating the same phrases. One day, he came alone to visit me. It was a year ago, just 6 months after starting his relationship with Vanessa. "Mom, I have been thinking," he said nervously, stirring his coffee. "This house really is too big for you, and the maintenance must be expensive. The stairs, the garden. Stephen, I have been taking care of this house for 15 years. I like my garden. I like having space. I know, I am just saying, well, you have the condo. It is more practical, and you could rent this house, have extra income." Vanessa was not present, but it was as if she were sitting between us, whispering from his lips. "Is this your idea or Vanessa's?" I asked directly. He turned red. "It is a conversation we had, yes. But it makes sense, Mom. Think about it." I did not mention the subject again, but I started to observe, to pay attention. I noticed how Vanessa touched Stephen's arm every time I said something. A gentle touch, almost imperceptible, but constant, like a reminder. I noticed how she diverted conversations when I talked about my plans, about the improvements I wanted to make to the house, about my bougainvillea garden. I noticed how she always found a way to mention how complicated my life was, how tired I must be, how lonely I lived. One afternoon while she was in the bathroom, I checked Stephen's phone, which he had left on the table. Yes, I did it, and I do not regret it. I saw messages from Vanessa. "Your mom is stubborn, but she is going to give in. Just keep insisting. That house is worth a fortune, babe. Think about our future. My parents really need a place. And your mom has options." I closed the phone with trembling hands, but I said nothing, because I knew that if I confronted Stephen, he would defend Vanessa, because that is how these manipulations work. They slowly isolate you from those who could open your eyes. So I waited, I observed, and I prepared for the blow I knew would come. Only I never imagined it would be at his own wedding in front of 200 people, where they would finally show their true intentions. After that scene at the wedding, Stephen caught up with me in the parking lot. I was looking for my car keys with trembling hands, the car lights reflecting on the wet pavement. It had rained during the party, as if the sky were also crying for what it had just witnessed. "Mom, wait." His voice sounded desperate. I stopped. I did not turn around. "I need to explain." "Explain what, Stephen? That you decided my life without consulting me, that you humiliated me in front of all those people. It was not like that. Vanessa just wanted, she thought it would be easier if we announced it publicly so you would not feel pressured to say yes just for me." I turned around then. I looked him in the eyes, those eyes that looked so much like his father's. And did it work? Do I feel less pressured now that 200 people know you are going to kick me out of my house? He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he had done since he was a child when he was nervous. Vanessa's parents' mom, they lost their house, they have debts. Richard had problems with his business, and that is why I have to pay. That is why I have to give up my home. It is not giving up. It is sharing. It is helping a family in need. I am 67 years old, Stephen. I worked all my life. I sold your father's business, his dreams, to give you a future, and now you ask me to hand over my present too. He remained silent. In the distance, I could hear the party music continuing inside. They did not come today because they are ashamed, he said finally. Stella, Richard, and Monica did not want to come because they knew this would be awkward. How convenient. I took a deep breath. When he spoke again, his voice was different, harder. Mom, you are going to have to understand that it is not just you anymore. Now I am part of a bigger family. Vanessa is my wife. Her problems are my problems, and I need you to. To what? To sacrifice myself once again, to make myself small so others can fit. He did not answer, and in that silence I understood that I had lost something more than a house. I had lost the son I raised. I got into my car and drove to my house crying all the way. The city streets shone with the recent rain. I passed the old location of the hardware store. It was now a convenience store. Not even a trace of the green sign remained. During the next 3 days, Stephen did not call me, but Vanessa did. Linda, I am very sorry how things turned out. Her voice sounded rehearsed. It was not my intention to make you uncomfortable. I just thought it would be easier if we all agreed from the beginning. No one asked me if I agreed. I know. That is why I am calling you. I want to explain the situation to you well. Can we meet? Maybe at a coffee shop. Just us two, quietly. I agreed. Not because I trusted her, but because I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. We met at a Starbucks uptown. She arrived late as always with huge sunglasses and that very expensive purse. My family is going through a very difficult time. She started after ordering a latte with almond milk. My dad, Richard, had an import business. He was successful, Linda. We had a house in the exclusive suburbs, 2 new cars. But 3 years ago, everything got complicated. There were problems with suppliers, accumulated debts. How much do they owe? I asked directly. She blinked, surprised by my frankness. It is not just about money. It is about dignity, about not letting my family sleep on the street. Where are they living now? In a rented apartment, small. My mom, Stella, had to look for work after years of being a housewife. My sister, Monica, got divorced recently and is with them. It is humiliating for everyone. She sipped her coffee. I saw her perfectly manicured nails, her watch that cost more than 3 months of my income. Your house has 4 bedrooms, she continued. More than enough space. They could help you with the maintenance, with the expenses, and you would be calmer in Stephen's condo. No stairs, no garden to take care of, no responsibilities. I like my responsibilities. Linda, her tone changed. It became colder. Be reasonable. Stephen is my husband now. This is not just your decision. The condo is also in his name. Technically, he already has a legal right over that property. There it was, the barely veiled threat. Are you telling me you are going to force me? I am saying it would be much easier if you cooperated. For everyone. Especially for your relationship with your son. I left that coffee shop feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. That night, I hired a private investigator, a man recommended by Mr. Higgins, my neighbor. His name was Ernest Miller. He had a modest office downtown. I need to know everything about the Torres family, I told him. Richard, Stella, and Monica, their debts, their past, everything. He charged me $1,000 up front. It was worth every penny. What he discovered froze my blood. The report arrived a week later, 30 pages that I read sitting in my kitchen with a cup of coffee that got cold without me taking a single sip. Richard Torres had not lost his business due to problems with suppliers. He lost it because he gambled. Casinos, online poker sports, betting. He owed $40,000 to loan sharks. One of them with connections I preferred not to investigate further. Stella Torres had been fired from her last job at a boutique for petty theft. Small things at first, a scarf, some earrings, then larger amounts. The owner did not press charges out of pity, but fired her without a recommendation. And Monica. Monica was perhaps the worst. She had a history of real estate fraud. She convinced 3 elderly people to invest in properties that never existed. One of the victims was a 72-year-old widow who lost her life savings, $15,000. I closed the folder with trembling hands. This was the family they wanted to put in my house. These were the needy poor for whom I had to sacrifice myself. I called Stephen that same night. I need to talk to you now. Mom, it is 10 at night. Now, Stephen. He arrived an hour later, alone. Vanessa had stayed in the apartment they now shared, the one I had bought thinking of his future, not his prison. I showed him the report. I saw his face change color with every page. This has to be a mistake. Ernest Miller is the best investigator in the area. Everything is documented. Invoices, complaints, testimonies. He slumped onto the sofa. The same sofa where I read him stories when he was a child. Vanessa did not know, are you sure, or did you just not want to know? He remained silent. Stephen, these people have serious problems, debts with dangerous people, criminal records, and you want to put them in my house. In the house I bought with the money from your father's business. They are my wife's family, and I am your mother. Does that mean nothing anymore? He stood up abruptly. I knew you would do this. Vanessa warned me that you would try to sabotage our marriage. I froze. Excuse me. You have always been controlling, Mom. You have never liked any of my girlfriends, and now that I finally found someone with whom I want to build a future, you do everything possible to ruin it. Stephen, no, let me finish. I am tired of feeling guilty. Yes, you made sacrifices. Yes, you paid for my college. But that does not give you the right to decide how I live my life. I am only showing you the truth, your truth. The truth according to Linda Miller, who always knows more, who is always right. His voice trembled with rage. Vanessa loves me. She chose me. And if you cannot accept that, then you are the problem. He left, slamming the door. The sound resonated throughout the empty house. For the next few days, the silence was absolute. Stephen did not answer my calls. My messages were left on read. But Vanessa did do something much worse than silence. She started posting on social media, stories on Instagram with messages like, when your mother-in-law prefers an empty house rather than helping her own family, posts on Facebook. Reflection. How far does the selfishness go of a mother who has everything and does not want to share anything? She never mentioned my name, but our mutual acquaintances knew exactly who she was talking about. The comments were divided. Some defended her. How sad when old people become bitter. I also had a selfish mother-in-law. I understand you perfectly. Others defended me, but they were fewer, because Vanessa's narrative was simpler, easier to digest. Young and kind woman versus cruel mother-in-law who does not want to help. Mrs. Higgins, my neighbor of a lifetime, came over one afternoon with sweet bread. Do not pay attention to them, Linda. People talk because they do not know, but they did know, or at least some knew. I received calls from distant relatives' cousins I had not seen in years, all with the same message. Is it true that you do not want to help your daughter-in-law's family? At the market, the lady who sold me vegetables looked at me differently. At church, some women stopped greeting me. The worst part was when I went to the bank to do some paperwork. The teller recognized me. You are Stephen Miller's mom, right? I saw what your daughter-in-law posted. What a shame, ma'am. Children these days do not value what one does for them. It was not compassion I saw in her eyes. It was pity, and something worse, satisfaction, that morbid pleasure of seeing someone else sunk in trouble. One night, someone knocked on my door at 11. It was Stephen. He had suitcases. "Can I stay here tonight?" he asked with a small voice. "What happened?" We argued. "Vanessa. She says that if I do not convince you to move, it is because I love you more than her." I let him in. I made him chamomile tea. He sat at the kitchen table like when he was 20 and came to tell me his problems. "Mom, I am tired. Vanessa cries every day for her parents. She tells me I am a bad son because I do not support her. But you also make me feel guilty. I do not want you to feel guilty, son. I want you to use your head." And if he stopped as if the words were hard to say, "What if you leave the house to them just for a while, until their situation improves, a year, maybe 2? I looked directly at him. "Do you trust that they will leave after that time?" He did not answer because he knew the answer. He stayed that night. But in the morning, Vanessa arrived crying, begging him to come back, and he left. I was left alone in my house, that house that now felt too big, too silent. And for the first time in 15 years, since I buried Arthur, I cried, feeling that I had lost everything. But I did not know yet that the worst was still to come. 2 weeks passed without news from Stephen. 2 weeks in which I woke up every morning with a weight in my chest that did not let me breathe well. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and saw a woman I no longer recognized. Puffy eyes, deeper wrinkles, hair grayer than I remembered. But pain, I discovered, can turn into something else when you let it settle. It can turn into clarity, into determination, into something cold and sharp as a knife. One morning I woke up different. I tied my hair back, put on my usual blouse, made coffee, and made a decision. I was not going to continue being the victim of this story. I called Ernest Miller again. "Mrs. Miller," his voice sounded surprised. "I did not expect to hear from you so soon. I need you to dig deeper, much deeper. I want to know everything about Vanessa, too. Her past, her previous relationships, her work, everything. Will that cost? I have savings, tell me how much." We agreed on another $1,500. Money that hurt to spend, but that I knew was an investment in my future. While Ernest worked, I did too. I started documenting everything, every text message, every social media post, every interaction. I bought a new notebook, one of those hardcover ones like the one Arthur used for the business. On the first page, I wrote, "The truth about the Torres family." I also hired a lawyer, not just any lawyer. Attorney Patricia Collins, a specialist in family and property law. She had a small office, but her reputation was impeccable. "Tell me everything she said when we sat in her office." I told her, from the wedding to Vanessa's veiled threats. I showed her the property documents for my house and the condo. She took off her glasses and looked at me with an expression I could not interpret. "Mrs. Linda, did you know that your house is not completely in your name?" I felt the floor move beneath my feet. "What do you mean it is not? When you bought this property 15 years ago, you signed a trust. Look here." She pointed to a clause in the documents that I did not even remember reading. "The house is in a family trust. You are the grantor and lifetime beneficiary." "Yes, but there are specific conditions." "What kind of conditions? If someone who is not a direct blood heir lives in the property without the express consent of the grantor, the property can revert to, let me see, a designated charitable foundation in Annex B." I leaned back in the chair. "I do not remember signing that. It is common. Many notaries include these clauses as additional protection. Was the notary who attended you a friend of your husband?" "Yes, Ernest Williams. He was a classmate of Arthur's in high school." "Then he probably did it to protect you so no one could take the house from you or take advantage of you after becoming a widow." My mind worked quickly. "And if there are already people living there, people I did not authorize?" "It depends. How long have they been living there?" "No one lives there yet, but they are pressuring me to let them in. Then you have an advantage. According to this clause, if you allow unauthorized people to live there for more than 90 continuous days, the trust activates automatically. You lose the property, And if I want to activate it sooner, can I do it intentionally? Attorney Collins looked at me with renewed interest. Explain to me what you have in mind. I explained. Everything. My plan was still forming, but the central idea was clear. If I was going to lose something, it would be on my own terms, not theirs. 3 days later, Ernest Miller handed me his second report. This one was even thicker than the first. I sat in my living room with a cup of lime tea to calm my nerves and started reading. Vanessa Garcia Torres, 28 years old. But the surprises began much earlier than her age. She had had 3 serious relationships in the last 5 years, all with older men, all with properties or businesses. The first relationship ended in a harassment lawsuit after he asked her to return a car he had given her. It was settled out of court. The second relationship was with a businessman from Ohio. They lasted 8 months. 3 months after breaking up, the man lost his company. Under strange circumstances, documents signed that he did not remember signing accounts emptied. He could never prove that Vanessa was involved, but the investigator had found transfers in Stella Torres's name on suspicious dates. The third relationship, the third one, knocked the wind out of me. She had been engaged. The man's name was Richard Salinas, owner of 3 fast food franchises. Rich, much richer than Stephen. The engagement was broken 2 weeks before the wedding. Why? Because Richard's mother hired a private investigator. She discovered the same thing I was discovering now, and Richard had the guts to end the relationship. Vanessa sued for emotional distress. She lost the case, but Richard had to pay her $2,000 just to close the process without more scandals. After that, Stephen appeared my son, a civil engineer with a good salary properties, and most importantly, a widowed mother with a big house in a prestigious suburb. I kept reading. The report included screenshots of conversations Ernest had obtained through contacts, messages between Vanessa and Monica. This one bites. The old lady is not going to last long with that pressure, and if she refuses, she is not going to refuse. Stephen is already on my side, and if the old lady does not cooperate, we will make her life impossible until she gives in. My hands trembled so much I had to leave the sheets on the table. There was more. Vanessa did not work in any family business. That company went bankrupt 4 years ago. Since then, she lived on small temporary jobs and mainly on loans from friends and acquaintances that she never paid back. Her business administration degree was real, but she had been suspended from her last job for embezzlement of funds. Small amounts, but enough to get her fired without a recommendation. The entire Torres family was a walking scam, and my son had married the ringleader. That night, I did not sleep. I stayed sitting in my kitchen with all the pages of the report spread out in front of me like pieces of a macabre puzzle. But now I knew the truth. And the truth, however painful, gave me power. The phone rang at 2 a.m. It was Stephen. Mom. His voice sounded strange. I need to tell you something. What happened? I signed a lease for your house. Vanessa told me that you had already accepted moving out and that it was only missing formalizing the agreement with her parents. I signed as a guarantor because the condo is in my name. I remained silent. A long, heavy silence. Mom, when did you sign that? 3 days ago. But today I saw the full contract, and Mom, it says her parents can live there indefinitely, and that if you do not vacate in 30 days, they can start a legal process. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. I see. I am sorry. I thought Vanessa told me. I know what she told you. And I know what you signed. What am I going to do? You already made your choice, Stephen. Now I am going to make mine. I hung up before he could answer. I poured myself a glass of the brandy I kept for special occasions. Arthur had bought it to celebrate our 25th anniversary. We never reached that anniversary. I drank slowly, feeling the liquid burn my throat. And then, with the clarity that only comes in the darkest moments, I knew exactly what I had to do. I gave them exactly what they wanted, or at least that is what they thought. 3 days after that late-night call, I invited Stephen and Vanessa to my house. I made coffee and bought pastries from the bakery on the corner as I did when Stephen was a child. Vanessa arrived with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Stephen did not look directly at me. "Thanks for having us, Linda," she said, settling onto my sofa as if it were already hers. "I know things got tense, but in the end, family is family, right?" I smiled, a tired, defeated smile, the smile they wanted to see. "You are right. I have been thinking a lot these days." I poured the coffee with a slightly trembling hand, a detail that did not go unnoticed. I am not young anymore. This house is too much for me alone. I saw how Vanessa straightened up, how her eyes shone with anticipated victory. "Stephen's condo is more practical," I continued. "No stairs, no garden to maintain. And if Vanessa's family really needs help..." Mom Stephen sounded relieved, almost guilty. "I just need time to organize my things," I said softly. 15 years here, many memories to pack. "Of course," Vanessa replied quickly. "Take the time you need, 2 weeks a month." 3 weeks, I said. "I move in 3 weeks." Vanessa extended her hand across the table and squeezed mine. Her fingers were cold. "You are a wise woman, Linda. This is the best for everyone." When they left, I sat in my living room for hours looking at every corner the armchair where Arthur read the newspaper, the stain on the wall left by Stephen when he was 8 and played ball inside the house, the curtains I had chosen 10 years ago. But I did not cry. I had no more tears. The Torres family moved in 2 days later. They did not wait for the 3 weeks. They arrived with a moving truck on a Tuesday morning. I stood there watching as they unloaded furniture boxes, televisions. Richard Torres was a man of about 60, with a belly with that air of someone who once had money and never got over losing it. Stella was thin, nervous, with her hands always busy with something. Monica was 32, bleached blonde, high heels, even for a move. Mrs. Linda Richard greeted me with false cordiality. "How kind of you to allow us to stay here. We appreciate it enormously." "It is temporary," I replied. Of course. Just until our situation improves." Liar. I could see it in his eyes. They had no intention of ever leaving. I gave them a tour of the house. I showed them where the water shut-off valves were, how the heating worked where I kept the tools. "This bedroom was my son's," I said, opening the door to the room that still kept some of his soccer trophies. "Perfect for me," said Monica, entering without asking for permission. She ripped a poster off the wall. "This has to go. I am going to paint it pink." Something tightened in my chest, but I just nodded. In my bedroom, the main one, Stella touched my things. "This clock," she pointed to the antique wall clock hanging by the window. "Is it valuable?" It was my husband's. His grandfather gave it to him. It is a bit old-fashioned, right? But surely we can sell it. These antiques are sometimes worth something. It is not for sale." "Well, technically you do not live here anymore, so..." She laughed, a high-pitched laugh that drilled into my ears. I packed my essential things that same afternoon. Clothes, important documents, Arthur's and Stephen's photos. I took the wall clock too, wrapped in a blanket. Stephen came to help me load the boxes into his car. We worked in silence. The Torres family watched us from the living room drinking beers, commenting on what they were going to change first. "That kitchen is very outdated," I heard Monica say. "It needs a complete remodel." In Stephen's condo, the one that would now be my home, I unpacked my things with mechanical movements. It was a nice space, 2 bedrooms, good lighting, but it felt alien, like a hotel where I was visiting. I hung the clock in the living room. Stephen helped me level it. "Mom, I know this is hard." "It is okay," I lied. "Vanessa promised it will be temporary. As soon as her parents get jobs." I did not answer. It made no sense. During the next 2 weeks, Stephen visited me every 3 days. He brought me food, asked me how I was. I smiled, said everything was fine, that I was adapting. But I called my house, my old house, just to hear who answered. The first time, Monica answered. "Hello." Her voice sounded impatient. I hung up without saying anything. The second time, Richard answered. "Torres residence," he said with pride. "Torres residence in the house I bought with the money from my dead husband's business." I hung up with trembling hands. I started driving down my old street just to see like someone visiting a grave. One afternoon, I saw something that froze my blood. A truck from a pawn shop parked in front of my house. 2 men were taking out furniture, my mahogany bookcase, the dining room table where we celebrated 20 of Stephen's birthdays, the chairs Arthur had varnished himself. I called Stephen immediately. They are selling my furniture. What? No, there must be a mistake. I am here. I see them. They are taking everything out. I heard him confronting Vanessa, muffled voices. Then he came back to the phone. Vanessa says her parents needed money urgently, that you said they could dispose of what you did not take. I never said that. Mom, they are just things. Old furniture. They were your father's things. Long silence. I am sorry, but I cannot do anything anymore. They already took them. That night, I received a call from Mrs. Higgins, my former neighbor. Linda, I need to tell you something. That family, they are destroying your garden. They tore out all your bougainvilleas. They say they are going to make a modern terrace. The bougainvilleas I had planted 12 years ago, that I watered every morning, that I pruned with my own hands. I also saw they sold your wall clock, Mrs. Higgins continued, the one that was in the living room. I saw it in a Facebook post. They sold it for $700. That clock was in my bedroom. I took it. Then they had another one just like it because it was definitely yours. It had the inscription on the back right, for Arthur with eternal love. My breath cut short. They had entered the condo. They had stolen the clock while I was not there. I called Stephen. He did not answer. I texted him. He left me on read. I called Vanessa. She did answer. Linda, I do not know what you are talking about. My mom found that clock in a closet in the house. She thought you had left it because you did not want it. Liar. I took it. You people entered my apartment. Be careful what you accuse. You have no proof. And honestly, at your age, it is normal to forget where you leave things. She hung up. I sat on the floor of my borrowed apartment surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, and for the first time, I truly understood what kind of people I was dealing with. They were not just opportunists. They were predators. But I could be one too. I took out my notebook, the hardcover one, and added a new page, evidence of theft and violation of private property. Below, I began to write. Every detail, every stolen object, every lie. The trap was ready. It was only missing for them to fall completely into it, and they were missing exactly 67 days for the trust clause to activate, 67 days for them to lose everything, 67 days for my revenge. On day 75, after the Torres family moved into my house, I called Attorney Collins. It is time, I said simply. Are you sure? Once we start this, there is no turning back. Completely sure. We met at her office that same afternoon. I brought my notebook, all the evidence I had collected, the photographs. Mrs. Higgins had sent me screenshots of the posts where they sold my belongings. It has been more than 90 days, explained the attorney, reviewing her notes. According to the trust clause, by allowing unauthorized people to live on the property for more than 90 consecutive days, you have violated the terms of the contract. But I did not authorize them. They imposed themselves. Legally, by moving out and giving them the keys, it is considered implicit authorization. However, she looked at me over her glasses. There is an additional clause that you probably never read completely. She opened the trust document to a page marked with yellow flags. It says here, in case of violation of the terms by coercion or verifiable fraud toward the grantor may request the immediate activation of the trust with transfer of the property to the designated charitable foundation, retaining the right of lifetime residence if desired. I do not understand. It means that if you can prove they forced you to leave your house through deceit or manipulation, you can activate the trust intentionally. The property passes to the foundation. The Torres family has no right over it, and you can choose if you want to continue living there as a lifetime beneficiary. I felt something expand in my chest. Hope. Power. And can I prove it? With what you showed me today, yes, the lease your son signed without your consent, the threatening text messages, the unauthorized sales of your personal property, the theft of the clock, all this constitutes coercion and fraud. How long will it take? If we file today, and considering we have solid documentation, we could have a resolution in 3 weeks, maybe 4. Do it. That night, I said nothing to Stephen, not even when he came with Chinese food and asked me how I was. I ate my chow mein in silence, nodded at the appropriate moments, let him talk about his work. Vanessa is very happy, he commented. She says her parents finally feel at peace, that your house gave them stability. That is great, I replied with a soft smile. See, Mom. In the end, everything turned out well. You just needed to adapt to change. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to show him all the photos, all the proof of what his precious wife and her family were doing. But I held back. Silence is also a weapon, and I was learning to use it. A week later, I received the official notification. Attorney Collins had filed the lawsuit. The family court had accepted the case, urgently given the evidence of fraud and manipulation toward an elderly woman. Now comes the interesting part, she told me on the phone. They are going to notify all parties involved, your son, your daughter-in-law, and the current residents of the property. They have 5 business days to respond. And then there is a hearing, and that is where you are going to have to be very strong, Linda. They are going to try to paint you as the villain, as the selfish mother who regretted helping. Let them try. The notification arrived on a Tuesday. Stephen appeared at my apartment at 8 at night. He did not knock. He had a key. He entered like a hurricane. "What is this?" he shouted, waving the papers. "A lawsuit. Are you suing us?" I remained seated on the sofa with my knitting in my hands. I had started knitting a scarf, something to keep my hands busy. I am not suing you. I am exercising my right over my property. It is the same thing. Mom, how could you? Vanessa's family is going to be on the street, like I was left from my own house. You chose to move. I put the knitting aside. I looked directly at him. I chose. Stephen, you signed a contract behind my back. They pressured me publicly at your wedding. They sold your father's furniture. They stole the clock your dad loved. They destroyed my garden. Is that choosing? He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture that now reminded me more of his father-in-law than Arthur. They were mistakes, misunderstandings. But this is cruel, Mom. Vanessa is destroyed. She cries every day. How convenient. What happened to you? You are not the woman who raised me. The mom I knew would never be so vengeful. I stood up. I had to look up to look him in the eye, but my voice did not tremble. The mom you knew died the day you chose a woman you barely knew over the woman who sacrificed everything for you. The mom you knew stayed buried under 15 years of sacrifice that you trampled on in 3 months of marriage. Mom. The hearing is in 2 weeks. I present all my evidence there. The judge will decide. And Steve and I paused. I suggest you get a good lawyer, because the charges for theft of personal property and illegal sale of other people's goods are also in the file. He went pale. Are you going to put us in jail? Not me. The law will if they find those who sold your father's clock, my furniture, and everything else guilty. He left without saying more. The door closed with a thud. I sat down again. My hands were trembling, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from recovered power. That night, Vanessa called me. Her voice was no longer sweet. It was pure poison. You miserable old woman, do you think you are going to win? I have lawyers, good lawyers, and I am going to drag your name through the mud. When I finish with you, no one in this city is going to want to see you. Try it, I replied calmly, but I suggest you better use that lawyer money to look for where you and your family are going to live in 3 weeks. Stephen is going to choose me. You know that, right? He is going to abandon you. You are going to die alone, bitter with no one. Maybe, but I am going to die in my house. Or at least, knowing I did the right thing. I hung up. The next 2 weeks were hell. Vanessa carried out her threat. She posted on all her social media. She painted me as the mother-in-law from hell, a cruel woman who was evicting a vulnerable family. I received hate messages, anonymous calls. Someone scratched my car with the words, "selfish old woman." But I also received other calls. From Monica's previous victims, from Vanessa's ex-fiancé Richard, who offered to testify on my behalf, from neighbors who had seen how the Torres family destroyed my property. Attorney Collins organized everything meticulously, every piece of evidence, every testimony, every document. "We are going to win," she told me the night before the hearing, "but prepare yourself, tomorrow is going to be difficult. I am ready," and I was. After 75 days of feeling trampled, humiliated, invisible, I was finally ready to roar. The day of the hearing, I woke up before dawn. I put on my gray suit, the same one I used when I handled important accounting. I combed my hair carefully. I painted my lips a discreet red. I wanted to look like what I was, a 67-year-old woman who knew exactly what she was worth. Attorney Collins picked me up at 7:30. Nervous, she asked as she drove to the courthouse. "Calm," I replied. And it was true. I had been through too much to be afraid now. The courtroom was smaller than I imagined. Beige walls, dark wood desks, the national seal hanging behind the judge's bench. It smelled of old paper and disinfectant. The Torres family was already there. Richard in a suit that was tight on his belly, Stella in a black dress as if she were going to a funeral, Monica with heels too high and makeup too heavy, and Vanessa. Vanessa wore a simple cream dress, no jewelry, with her hair tied back in a ponytail, the perfect image of humility. Stephen was sitting next to her. He did not look at me when I entered. The judge was a man of about 50 with thick glasses and a serious expression. His name was Hector Ramirez, according to the plaque on his desk. "Good morning," he said when we were all seated. "We are here for the case of Linda Miller, widow of Miller, against the Torres Garcia family regarding the property located at—" He read the full address of my house. My old house. "Attorney Collins, you may proceed with your opening." Patricia stood up. She carried a brown briefcase full of documents. "Your Honor, I come to represent Mrs. Linda Miller, a 67-year-old widow who has been a victim of coercion manipulation and fraud by her daughter-in-law and her family." She began to present the evidence, one by one, methodically. The lease Stephen signed without my consent. The screenshots of the posts where they sold my furniture. The testimonies from Mrs. Higgins about the destruction of my garden. The photographs of Arthur's clock being sold online. The Torres lawyer, a young man with too much gel in his hair, tried to object constantly. "Your Honor, Mrs. Miller voluntarily left the property. She signed documents handing over keys. I did not sign any document," I interrupted. The judge looked at me. "Mrs. Miller, please wait your turn to testify." "Sorry, Your Honor," Patricia continued. She presented the messages between Vanessa and Monica that the investigator had obtained, the ones where they called me old and planned to pressure me until I gave in. I saw Vanessa turn pale. "Your Honor," said her lawyer, "those private messages were obtained illegally. They were obtained by a licensed private investigator," Patricia replied. "Completely legal under the law when there is a founded suspicion of fraud." The judge took notes without expression. Then it was the Torres family's turn to defend themselves. Their lawyer called Vanessa to the stand first. "Ms. Torres, Mrs. Miller," she corrected with a soft voice. "Sorry, Mrs. Miller, can you explain to the judge how you came to live on your mother-in-law's property?" Vanessa wiped away a non-existent tear. "My family was going through a very difficult time, Your Honor. My father lost his business. We were about to be on the street. When Stephen and I got married, his mom, Linda, told us she would help us, that we could use her house while she moved to a smaller place. She offered voluntarily. Yes, she said it was her wedding gift to us. Lie, blatant lie. And the furniture you sold. Linda told us to take what we wanted, that she did not need them anymore. She even gave us permission to make modifications to the house. And the clock. That clock was in a closet. We thought she had forgotten it. My mom sold it to buy food. We did not know it was important. Every word was like a stab, but I kept still, serene. The judge looked directly at her. Do you have proof that Mrs. Miller authorized these actions? Vanessa hesitated. It was verbal. Everything was verbal, I understand. Then they called Stephen. My son took the stand, avoiding my gaze. Mr. Miller, said the Torres lawyer. Was your mother in agreement with the arrangement? Stephen shifted uncomfortably in his seat. She was reluctant at first, but eventually she understood it was for the best. Would you say she was forced? No, I do not think so. You do not think so, or she was not forced. The judge's voice was sharp. There was pressure, yes, but pressure from whom? Stephen looked at Vanessa. She held his gaze with pleading eyes. From the circumstances. Vanessa's family needed help and, answer the question, Mr. Miller, was your mother pressured or not? The silence stretched heavy, dense. Yes, he said finally in a low voice. Yes, she was pressured. I heard Vanessa's stifled gasp. The judge took note. Then it was my turn. I went up to the stand with a firm step. I put my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, and I told it, all of it. No embellishments, no drama, just the facts. I told them about the announcement at the wedding, about the pressure messages, about the contract signed behind my back, about seeing my dead husband's memories being sold, about the uprooted bougainvilleas, about the stolen clock. Why did you not defend yourself sooner, Mrs. Miller, the judge asked. Because I was afraid of losing my son. I thought if I gave in, if I made myself small, he would come back to me. But I was wrong. When you give in to vultures, they do not leave you alone. They just go for more meat. Vanessa stood up. That is a lie. She is the manipulator here. She always has been. Order. The judge banged his gavel. Mrs. Miller, sit down or you will be removed from the courtroom. Patricia asked to speak. Your Honor, I would like to introduce an additional witness, Mr. Richard Salinas. Richard entered the room. Vanessa's ex-fiancé, a man of about 40, well-dressed, sure of himself. He testified for 20 minutes. He told how Vanessa had manipulated him, how she tried to keep properties in her name, how her family had tried to isolate him from his mother. The same pattern, he said, looking directly at Vanessa. Finds a man with resources, approaches him playing the victim, manipulates to obtain properties, and when she cannot get any more, she looks for the next one. Vanessa was crying now, real tears, desperate. The judge reviewed all the documents for what seemed like an eternity. I have seen enough, he said finally. The evidence presented clearly demonstrates a pattern of coercion and fraud. Furthermore, according to the terms of the trust presented, the property was protected against exactly this type of situation. He looked at the Torres family. The Torres family has 72 hours to completely vacate the property located at, he read the address. Any property remaining after that deadline will be considered abandoned. Additionally, an investigation will be ordered for charges of illegal sale of someone else's property. No, screamed Stella. We have nowhere to go. You should have thought of that before destroying Mrs. Miller's heritage. Then he looked at me. Mrs. Miller, according to the terms of the trust, you have two options. Recover lifetime residence in the property or proceed with the transfer to the designated charitable foundation, which I see here as Foundation Widows in Hope. I took a deep breath. I choose the transfer to the foundation, Your Honor, on the condition that that house be used to temporarily house widows who have lost their homes due to unfair circumstances. Women like I almost was. The judge nodded with something that looked like approval. So it shall be done. This hearing is adjourned. When we left the room, Stephen caught up with me in the hallway. Mom, I did not know that Vanessa. Yes, you knew. You just did not want to see. Can you forgive me?" I looked at him. My son. The child I carried in my arms. The young man I applauded at his graduation. The man who chose a stranger over me. Someday, maybe. But not today, Stephen. Today I need to heal. I walked away without looking back. Vanessa was leaning against the wall, sobbing. Richard was shouting obscenities. Stella was crying. Monica was already on the phone, probably looking for where to hide from the charges that would come. But I walked down that hallway with my head held high, because for the first time in months, I breathed freely. 72 hours later, I returned to my house. Attorney Collins accompanied me along with a court officer and 2 witnesses. The Torres family had already taken their things. They left the house like a battlefield. Scratched walls, dirty floors, trash accumulated in the corners. They even tore down the curtains. The garden was a wasteland of overturned earth where my bougainvilleas used to grow. I walked through every room feeling a mixture of sadness and liberation. In the kitchen, someone had burned the linoleum floor. In my old bedroom, they had painted the walls a shocking pink. The master bathroom had a broken mirror, but it was still my house. "I am sorry, Mrs. Miller," said the officer. "Some people respect nothing." "It does not matter," I replied. "Walls can be painted, floors can be repaired. Stolen dignity is harder to recover, and I already recovered mine." I spent the next few days cleaning. Mrs. Higgins came to help me. Mr. Higgins brought tools to fix what could be fixed. Other neighbors, those who had always supported me, arrived with brooms, buckets, paint. "This is incredible," Linda said, Mrs. Higgins, while we scrubbed the kitchen floor. "What you did defending your house like that." I had no choice. Either I defended myself or I sank. "And your son? Have you heard from him?" I shook my head. "Nothing since the hearing. He will come back. Children always come back when their eyes are opened. I was not sure I wanted him back. Not yet." A week later, I received a call from the Foundation Widows in Hope. The director, a woman named Grace, wanted to meet with me. We met at a cafe downtown. "Mrs. Miller," she began with a warm smile. "First of all, let me tell you that what you did is extraordinary. That house can house up to 6 women at the same time. With the proper repairs, it will be a shelter for those who need it most. And me, I asked. The judge said I had lifetime residence if I wanted it. Yes, you could live there as an administrator, help coordinate the shelter. Or if you prefer, we can designate someone else and you would just visit whenever you wanted." I thought about it. I thought about living surrounded by women who had lost everything like I almost lost. About turning my pain into purpose. "I want to participate," I said. "Not as a full-time administrator. I am too old for that. But I want to help tell my story to the women who arrive. Let them know that you can survive betrayal, that you can recover dignity." Grace extended her hand. I shook it. 2 weeks later, the house was transformed. We had painted all the walls light colors. We bought simple but dignified furniture. We replanted the garden with new bougainvilleas and also with roses, jasmine, and a small herb garden. The first resident arrived on a Tuesday. Her name was Rose. She was 58 years old. Her son had kicked her out of her house so his girlfriend could move in. The story sounded terribly familiar to me. "You are not alone," I told her as I showed her her room. "Here you are going to heal, and then you are going to fly." She cried in my arms, and I cried with her, because now I understood that my pain had not been in vain. A month after the hearing, Stephen appeared at the door. He no longer looked like the confident and proud man who had chosen Vanessa over me. He had deep circles under his eyes. He had lost weight. His clothes were wrinkled. Mom. I stood at the door without inviting him in. "I got divorced," he said without preamble. "Vanessa, it was all true, everything you said. I found her trying to get me to sign documents to sell the condo. My condo, the one you bought. I am sorry," I said, and I meant it. No, I am sorry. I took too long to see what was always in front of me. I let myself be blinded by I do not even know why. by the idea of love, I suppose, by not wanting to be alone. The fear of loneliness makes us accept toxic company. Will you be able to forgive me someday? I looked at him. My son. The product of my love with Arthur. The child I carried, fed, educated with everything I had. Forgiveness is not asked for Stephen. It is earned. With time, with actions, with real change. What do I have to do? First, be honest with yourself about why you betrayed me. It was not just Vanessa. There was something in you that chose to believe her instead of trusting me. He nodded with moist eyes. Second, rebuild your life with integrity. Not to impress me, but because that is what your father would have wanted. And third, understand that our relationship changed. I am no longer the mother who sacrifices in silence, and you can no longer be the son who takes that sacrifice for granted. I understand. Good. I paused. There is a room available here. Not for you, but you could come once a week to help with maintenance with the garden, meet the women who are recovering, learn from their stories. Are you giving me a chance? I am giving you the chance to become the man your father would have been proud to know. He came the next Saturday, and the next, and the next. I saw him change slowly. I saw how he listened to Rose's stories, Mariana, who arrived later, Claudia and Anna. Abandoned, betrayed, stripped women. Women who were rebuilding their lives, brick by brick. One afternoon while we were working together planting new bougainvilleas, he said, "Thank you, Mom." Why? For not giving up on me, for showing me that true love has limits. That respect is more important than pleasing. I did not answer. I just kept planting. But inside, something healed a little more. 6 months passed. The house housed 5 women, all working, recovering, planning their futures. I lived in a small apartment nearby, but spent most of my days at the house, helping, advising, simply being present. Mr. Higgins died in March. Mrs. Higgins asked me to speak at his funeral. He always admired you, she told me. He said you were the bravest woman he knew. At the funeral, surrounded by people I had known all my life, I spoke about Mr. Higgins, but also about courage, about the difference between the courage that shouts and the courage that stands firm in silence until the exact moment to act. Stephen was there. Since the hearing, he had become someone different, more humble, more aware. He worked hard to rebuild his life. He had sold the condo and bought a smaller one. He donated half the money to the foundation. "It is the least I can do," he said when I asked him why. "You are not doing it for me," I reminded him. "You are doing it because it is the right thing." I never heard from Vanessa again. Someone told me she moved to another city, that she had found another man with money, that the pattern continued. The Torres family faced charges for the illegal sale of my goods. Richard ended up paying a considerable fine. Monica finally went to prison for the previous frauds that had been documented. Stella simply disappeared. I did not feel joy for their misfortune, but I did not feel pity either. I felt nothing, and that was liberating. 1 year after the hearing, on a warm October afternoon, I was sitting in the garden of the house. The bougainvilleas had grown beautiful, more vibrant than ever. Rose was inside preparing dinner. Mariana was reading on the porch. Anna was watering the plants. Stephen arrived with flowers, as he did every week now. "For you, Mom." I took them. They were sunflowers, my favorites. "How are you?" he asked, sitting next to me. "Fine, really fine." And it was true. I met someone, he said shyly. "Her name is Patricia. She's a teacher. You would like to meet her. Did you tell her your story already? All of it, including the ugly parts, including what I did to my mother. And what did she say? That we all deserve a second chance. But that second chances are earned, not given away." I smiled. I like her already. That night after Stephen left, I sat in the garden until it got dark. I watched the stars appearing one by one in the sky. I thought about Arthur, about how he would have handled all this, probably with more grace than me. But I also thought he would be proud. Not of the revenge, but of the recovered dignity, because this was never about punishing. It was about not allowing them to erase me. Rose came out with 2 cups of tea. "I thought you would like some company, Mrs. Linda." "Thank you, dear." She sat next to me in silence. After a while, she said, "My son called today." "Yes. He wants to talk. He says his girlfriend left him when she realized I had no money to give him." "And what did you tell him?" "That I would see him, but on my terms. That if he wants a relationship with me, he has to earn it." I squeezed her hand. "Well done. I learned from the best." We drank our tea in silence while the night settled completely, and in that silence I understood something fundamental. True wealth was never in the house, nor in the furniture, nor in the properties. True wealth was in knowing when to fight, when to yield, and when to simply walk with your head held high, knowing you did the right thing. It was in not allowing them to turn you into a victim of your own kindness. It was in understanding that love without respect is just manipulation in disguise. And it was in knowing that it is never too late to defend what belongs to you, not out of greed, but out of dignity. I looked toward the house, the lights on in every window, women who had hit rock bottom and were now rising, women who, like me, had learned that giving up is not the only option. And I smiled. Because this house, with its history of pain, transformed into a shelter, was my best revenge against those who thought they could break me. They did not break me, they strengthened me. And that was a victory much sweeter than anything else I could have imagined. Final reflection. Sometimes life puts us in situations where we have to choose between being kind or being strong. I learned that the most powerful women are those who know how to be both, but never at the cost of their own dignity. If my story touched your heart, if you have ever felt invisible in your own life, if you have sacrificed so much that you forgot that you also matter, then write in the comments where you are joining us from. Tell me your story. Because we all have one, and we all deserve to be heard. Hit like if you believe that respect is earned, not begged for. And subscribe to continue sharing stories of women who refuse to be erased from their own lives. Because in the end, the true inheritance is not houses or money, it is the dignity with which we face storms. And that no one can take away from you. The end.